secure future for South and Southeast Asia. We hope to pave a promising path forward for the industrial energy transition in the region. The Institute for Sustainable Communities is a leading global nonprofit organization with 30 years of experience in implementing interventions to combat climate change. We host this event today as part of our work on the Energy Efficiency Alliance for Industry program, accelerated by P4G, Partnering for Green Growth and the Global Goals 2030, and implemented in partnership with Energy Efficiency Services Limited India. Before we dive deep into the exciting segments and conversations that we have planned for today, without any further ado, I would like to invite Dion Ferris, President, Institute for Sustainable Communities, to open the event and mark the beginning of this journey with her ever so valuable words. The stage is yours, Dion.
Thank you so much, Mehar. I'm glad to be with all of you today. As Mehar mentions, since 1991, the Institute for Sustainable Communities has led transformative, community-driven, equity-centered projects in 31 countries. This is our 30th year anniversary. All of the projects that we've worked on in these countries have helped surface and shape locally grounded and internationally scalable solutions. At the Institute, our goal is unleashing the power of local leaders, populations, and institutions to address the most pressing social, economic, and environmental challenges. We work in 6 countries in Asia and across the United States. In South and Southeast Asia, we support the manufacturing communities that are hardest hit by climate change and environmental degradation and by COVID-19. Also, we focus on smaller enterprises, smaller factories, the small and medium enterprises, as they're called. And we focus on strengthening their ability to support livelihoods and drive equitable climate change action, energy access, and economic recovery. The South and Southeast Asian region, as we all know, is growing exponentially as it has over the last 2 decades. The regional population is expected to continue to grow at a significant rate. And that, as we all know, translates into enormous increases in regional energy demand. Topping off the growth in population and the increased energy demand, there's the complicating factor of the region's climate change vulnerability, where a high percentage of the population is hard hit by the extreme weather events of climate change. Paving the way forward for industrial energy transition in South and Southeast Asia's power sector means that the sector must be physically and financially resilient and able to secure the investments that are needed to support community resiliency at the same time that we're working together to meet the region's energy demand and making the absolutely necessary shift to clean energy. We can accelerate the shift by collaborating and driving wins in the areas of community climate change resiliency, energy access, energy efficiency, and clean tech adoption. Let's center net zero in our work decarbonizing supply chains and production facilities at the region, while at the same time, we're reducing and eliminating pollution and greenhouse gas emissions, and we're delivering economic prosperity, especially for the communities that are hardest hit. With the excellent support from our core partners and the Partnership for Green Growth and Global Goals, P4G, the Institute for Sustainable Communities is facilitating stakeholders in their work addressing technology barriers and access to finance by structuring and rolling out market transformation models. For today's session, we bring together critical stakeholders from Vietnam, the Philippines, Indonesia, Bangladesh, and India. And we're hoping today to focus on this discussion, which means the right way forward for equitable energy transition and industrial energy transition in the region. We are thrilled to be hosting this event today. My thanks to our international team for their hard work pulling it all together, and thank you for joining. And with that, I'll hand it back to my colleague, Mehar.
Thank you, Dion, for the remarkable opening to this event. I think a significant question today is why. Why South Asia and Southeast Asia? Why is it today that we are looking at paving the way forward within this region, the challenges, solutions, and opportunities for green partnerships therein? And I think, as wonderfully as Dion explains it, she has shed rightful light on the criticality and significance of this region in the fight that the world marches along in today against climate change. And I think that calls for action. Therefore, to do the honors, I'd like to invite Amit Singh, Program Officer, Energy and Environment at the Institute for Sustainable Communities, to take the stage.
Thanks a lot, Meher. Just wanted to make sure I'm audible and my screen is visible to all of you.
Yes, Amit.
Great. So, good morning, very good evening to all of you. My name is Amit, and I'm going to talk about some of the key findings, key observations from our recent deep dive assessment, which we carried out in this region, South Asia and Southeast Asia region, as part of a program accelerated by P4G. The objective is to set context for further discussion by raising a certain set of questions, by discussing few of the barriers and challenges, and also by making suggestions on possible, probable, or potential way forward suggestions. So now, because we are talking about industrial energy transition in this region, the first question is, what is so specific about this region, which is South Asia and Southeast Asia region? Some interesting fact. There are more people living inside the circle than outside of it. This region is a significant contributor to the overall manufacturing output. That's the second thing. And the most important thing, third thing is, these are the growing economies, which means we are going to see increase in energy demand from these regions. And some of my thought process are very well supported by some of the facts, which says some of the projected estimates, which says the energy demand in this region is expected to increase by 1.6 times in next 2 decades. And there are concerns. Some of the estimations are talking about 11% reduction in region's GDP due to climate change related issues. So what does this mean? This clearly means if these countries have to maintain their growth in a sustainable manner, I mean, interventions related to energy efficiency becomes a must kind of requirement in these countries. And there is a clear-cut opportunity also. I mean, in terms of number, this is 15 to 30% opportunity of reducing the overall energy demand and certain investment opportunities. And what we have been doing is, ISC, we have been working in this region for the past, I would say, 10 years to make impactful interventions to promote sustainable manufacturing, precisely to kind of promote our mission, which is aimed at building a better future, shaped and shared by all. So that's the reason we are working in South Asia and Southeast Asia region. Coming to some of the country-specific numbers, I mean, country-specific profiles. Some of these numbers will validate my previous statements about potential in this region. Particularly if you see the share of energy towards total energy, share of industrial energy towards overall energy consumption as highlighted for all of these 4 countries. So then the bottom line is there is a clear-cut potential. The question is, where is this potential? So in terms of technologies, in terms of sectors, if we see all these countries, textile is one common sector where we can see significant amount of potential. In case of Bangladesh and Vietnam, we have also got a significant amount from steel and iron, probably because the energy intensive nature of operation these industries are having in terms of their processes. In terms of technologies, on thermal side, clearly its opportunities related to energy efficient boiler, waste heat recovery systems, cogeneration systems. And on electrical side, we've got energy efficient motors. Precisely, we're talking about IE3 and IE4 motors. And each of these countries have also estimated certain amount of saving potentials. So the good part is, I mean, the local government regulatory agencies, they have done great amount of work to kind of meet some of these targets. The first thing is they have got NDC's commitment in place, which talks about certain amount of GHG emission reductions. I mean, it can vary from 5% all the way to 25%, depending on the countries. And they have got country-specific initiatives also. For example, Bangladesh, you've got Shreda. Shreda has got a master plan, which is talking about certain amount of reduction in energy consumption by 2030. In case of Vietnam, we have series of Vietnam National Energy Efficiency Programs. Currently, we are into VNEEP3. In case of Philippines, we have recently got this Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act, which got passed in 2019 only. And in case of Indonesia, we've got national level plans. So the question is, I mean, we have got plans, we have got clear-cut intent, but what we are talking is basically we are talking about large-scale adoption. We are talking about industrial energy transition. And if we have to kind of achieve that, we also need to address certain barriers which continue to persist, which are hindering the largest scale adoption of these technologies. And what are these barriers and challenges? I mean, I can go on and on, but I'll talk in a simple language. First one is technical, where we are saying, I mean, whenever we go to any industry and we talk about this is energy efficient technology, the first question industry people they are going to have is, have you demonstrated this technology somewhere else? Do you have any case study to showcase? Which means they have high risk perception, whether this technology will work or not. So for time being, if I have kind of addressed this barrier, the next question they are going to have is the cost of the technology is going to be very high, which means they are talking about the financial concern. Even if we are able to address that high upfront cost related barrier, the next question they are going to have is whatever may be the cost, we don't have money to make upfront investment, which means they are looking for innovative business models, innovative financial mechanisms. And if we are able to address that also, the next question they're going to have is we don't know how to size it. They're looking for hand-holding support, which means we need a system which can provide these kind of services, as a result of which we can see adoption of energy efficient technologies. Unfortunately, that is not very strong. I mean, either this is not existent, or if it is there, then it is, I would say, kind of underdeveloped. Then the thing is, even if we have this system in place, most of the thing, and this is something we have seen on field, like people are not aware of. I mean, we talk about the schemes and all, but if they are not aware of, we can't implement these things. And then the last thing is related to policy, where we are talking about large scale adoption of, policy. We are talking about conducive environment to have large scale adoption of EE technologies. So what is the way forward solution? So way forward could be, I mean, where we are talking about one agency, it could be Super ESCO, it could be Federation of ESCO, it could be Simple ESCO, whatever we want to say, we can say. What this agency is doing is basically, they are identifying the potential, which technology has got highest potential. And then they are going for technical demonstration, performance benchmarking, everything they are doing. In simple words, we can say they are doing the job of technology standardization. Means that's how we are taking care of the technical barrier. And then the financial, the biggest barrier. What they are doing is basically this agency, they are aggregating demand on behalf of industries and then doing something called bulk procurement. Now, because we are aggregating the demand, economy of scale is coming into picture. And as a result of that, we are able to see reduction in the capex cost. This is something we have seen. In India, we have seen a reduction of 20 to 25, 30% in the overall capex cost. That's how we are taking care of the second barrier, which is high upfront cost. And the third thing is basically upfront investment. So even if the industries are not willing to make upfront investment, this ESCO agency can make upfront investment. And they can be repaid by the industry from the monetized energy saving. What do I mean by monetized energy saving is, because we are replacing an old technology with a new technology, certainly we are going to see reduction in energy consumption, which means we are talking about monetary savings. One part of this saving can be retained by industries and one part can be paid back to ESCOs. Now, you might say, I mean, the challenge is like, because we are having different players in the ecosystem, the landed cost of the technology might be slightly higher than what is available in the market. But if we see it from other lens, industry, they don't need to make any investment. In fact, they don't need to do anything. And everything is being done by the ESCO. So that's kind of model we are talking about, where this is a kind of win-win situation for all. Now, if we are talking about large scale adoption, which means we are talking about we need to kind of we need to leverage the expertise from other players in the ecosystem. And that's where we have got this mini ESCO concept. What we are doing is basically we are leveraging the connections, the strength of private players which are available in the country. And they can continue to work as an extended arm of this Super ESCO. They'll continue to do the same job what this ESCO is supposed to do. And in turn, they will get certain monetary benefits. One of the biggest challenge what we have seen is related to financing. What we can do is we can have financing institutions in place which can provide loans to these mini ESCOs. Loan can be provided to mini ESCO or to industries. And these financing institutions, they are also in a comfortable positions because we are talking about a standard program. So most of the technical challenges have already been taken care in this program. And that's the reason they are willing to kind of provide fund. What we need to take care is basically whatever loan they are providing, we need to secure that loan using some de-risking mechanisms. It could be risk sharing facility, what we have seen in India, it could be insurance-based mechanisms. So that's how we are talking about developing the whole ecosystem, and that's how we are going to take care of the institutional challenge. And in the whole system, you see this Super ESCO agency, they are doing all activities related to awareness creation, capacity building. That's how we are going to take care of the social challenge. And moving forward, what we are also trying is basically we are trying to create some revolving fund-based mechanisms. The intent is if we can provide loans at a lower interest rate, we can pass on this benefit to industries. That's how this revolving fund-based mechanisms can work. And the last thing is, in India, we are also exploring something called utility-based demand-side management program, where we are making these electricity supply companies as part of this program, and they can support the overall program by ensuring repayment to Super ESCO companies. And so basically, we are exploring the possibility of on-bill financing schemes. So this is the broader perspective what we are trying to kind of propose. Obviously, country-specific nitty-gritties are going to be different. So broadly, what we are saying is we need to have a holistic approach where we are not only talking about one-time demonstrations, but we are also talking about sustainability and scalability of these solutions. And we are also talking about we need to have innovative financing mechanisms that becomes a kind of must thing. And then strengthening, enabling the local ecosystem, the key players of the ecosystem becomes a must kind of requirement in this case. And then the last thing is technical assistance and knowledge building. So that's the kind of approach we need to take. And finally, I would like to say that the most and extremely important point in this thing is the kind of scale we are kind of aiming at, the kind of barriers and challenges we are talking about, the role of partnerships and collaborative efforts, that becomes a kind of fundamental requirement. And we have been kind of fortunate to have support from our local partners in these countries. I would like to thank all of you for believing in us and supporting these joint interventions. Certainly, together we can make it happen. So with this, I'll pause here. I'll be happy to take any questions on this. With this, I'll hand it over back to Meher.
Thank you, Amit, for really calling for and driving our spirits today towards action. You've given us a comprehensive overlay of the potential opportunities that can be leveraged at scale within the region, thereby overcoming barriers that pose as roadblocks in this fight to build climate sustainability. Our session today endeavors to take a step beyond discussion and dialogue. We hope to offer a platform for key institutions which are implementing sustainable manufacturing within the region to present and pitch innovative, sustainable, and scalable solutions that can drive the energy transformation in South and Southeast Asia. Once we roll in the pitches, we will then hear from renowned organizations that focus on enabling green partnerships and leveraging green investment within the region, their valuable inputs, recommendations, and insights on the solutions pitched today. The larger aim, therefore, is to ensure a platform that can elevate potential solutions and really activate their ability to attract green investment. Therefore, quickly moving into the next segment, I hand over the stage to Mark Lister, Managing Partner, Asia Clean Energy Partners, as we hear from regional leaders, including himself, a range of implementable solutions within our countries of focus of Indonesia, Bangladesh, Vietnam, the Philippines, and India.
Thank you, Mahar, and thanks and welcome to everybody to this very interesting session that's been put together by Institute for Sustainable Communities. It's a pleasure to be involved with this. I've actually had some involvement in the work that Amit is presenting, and I really want to commend ISC for their approach here, looking for practical solutions to some of the challenges in this energy transition for industry. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the region, but I think Amit's done most of my job. In the interest of time, I'll keep it very high level. I will also just make a couple of comments about Vietnam because our Vietnam partners couldn't be here today, so I can speak on their behalf on the work that we've done. But we're going to quickly go around. We really have a great set of really well-informed and experienced people to speak on behalf of each of their countries. It's a shame we only get to hear 5 minutes of their time because they have so much they can tell us about. But we're looking to define these problems that Amit has introduced and think about these potential challenges and barriers and the model that was laid out, which is very comprehensive, and thinking about what are the actual solutions that are relevant to each country. So we're really asking each of the people today who will be talking for a quick pitch on that. And, you know, as well, Amit mentioned the importance of partnerships and who the key stakeholders are. So I think there's some commonality in the issues around the region, as Amit introduced. We're talking about some very large and rapidly growing economies here, and you know, these are some of the biggest population countries in the whole world, as was pointed out. typically we have a high fossil fuel use as well. So the need for decarbonisation in these economies is very high, driven by both high indigenous resources, but also by a slow transition to new technologies that's been happening. So high vulnerability to climate change, we've also heard Amit talk about, and also Dion talk about that already. But rising incomes is leading to rising energy use. At the same time, we've actually seen improvements in energy productivity across the board in most of these countries. And that's not necessarily because of energy efficiency action, it's from changing shapes of economies, but there's so much more potential still to be tapped. And there's regional targets for these things at the policy level, but in many cases they look like they're not going to be met unless activity is significantly ramped up. So we do have this as a kind of an overlay for the region, and we can see the need for greater and faster action and the sorts of things that Amit is talking about to really spur activity. So let me just say a couple of things about Vietnam before handing on to our experts from each of the countries under discussion today. In Vietnam, it's actually the most intensive of all the countries in the study in terms of energy use. 54% of energy going to industry, and it's quite heavy industry. So cement, chemicals, steel, food, pulp and paper, the big energy users in industry. There has been a lot of programs focused on industry, especially the Vietnamese cement industry, which has made up a lot of ground. But the issue with most of the work in Vietnam is through enforcement of government programs. They actually, in Vietnam, have set up an extremely comprehensive program for industry known as the Vietnam National Energy Efficiency Program, or VNEP. And that program is really implemented through government, through the Ministry of Industry and Trade and its local chapters. That is an extremely comprehensive program with detailed targets and requirements on each industry subsector. But the issue is in some ways enforcement, because that ambition is not always seen through at the local level. And Amit mentioned enforcement as one of the barriers, policy enforcement. The other thing is that the ESCO sector, or the services sector that could supply these sorts of energy efficiency solutions, is very underdeveloped. In fact, to just refer to Amit's diagram of all the different pieces of that ecosystem across suppliers, and then finance and other people who can provide elements of that strength and capacity of the system, is actually lacking in a lot of different areas. So in terms of solutions, for me to finish, the main technologies we identified were actually what you would expect for those sorts of heavy industries. It's things like blast furnaces and boilers, efficient cooling and so on. That's in the important technology areas. These de-risking measures to actually encourage private investment are one of the areas that we picked as being an important area for further activity and work in Vietnam, and also just general work on building the capacity of the ESCO sector and the awareness of different players in industry to actually avail themselves of the sorts of services that are there that they could use to better improve their energy efficiency and become more productive and more competitive as a result. So that's a very, very quick wrap up on some of the findings that we found in Vietnam. And for the interest of time, I'm going to continue moving through our program to make sure we keep time and give everyone a chance to speak. So next, I'm going to call upon Pak John Respati. John is a very experienced campaigner in this field from Indonesia. He's the chairman of the Indonesia Energy Conservation Energy Efficiency Society, MASCAE. He's been involved in this issue for a very long time and has a lot of great perspective on these key questions that we're looking at, which are, given this situation, what are the solutions to overcome the barriers in Indonesia, and also who are the partners that can help to take this forward. So John, please go ahead. You have 5 minutes to share your views.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Let me appear myself and start my video. Thank you very much once again, Mark, and I feel honored to speak in this prestigious forum about the challenge and provide of ESCO business in Indonesia. I've been asked to talk about and to define what is the ESCO problem in Indonesia, why they didn't take off, and scale up. So in in this, for those who do not know about Muscat, I would say just a couple seconds. My organization is a not-profit CSO established in 2014. We are advocating energy efficiency and conservation, primarily on the energy demand side development in Indonesia to support the low carbon development. The ESCO business model has been officially introduced in Indonesia for about 6 years ago, and the government saw this as a positive instrument to contribute to implementing the energy conservation and efficiency projects, whereby a core regulation on the energy conservation was established in 2009. Okay, because of the limited time, I'm not going to talk about. I'm going to jump into the topic of defining the problem of ESCO in Indonesia. In this brief talk, I would attempt to define the ESCO challenges that make the business model difficult to sustain and how to and grow during the last decade. Having said that, I don't imply that there was no energy efficiency projects taking place in Indonesia at all. There are, as a matter of fact, many projects were implemented by various companies, but overwhelmingly, they did not apply the ESCO specific business model. That's the problem. The projects were mostly implemented by the owners themselves, assisted by consultants, sure, and taking the owners and using the owner's own financial resources or facility. So here I would like to share my two slides for, let me share this one. Okay, so here are some factors that made the ESCO business in Indonesia quite challenging. And let me show you this. Okay, number one, the challenge is that the government support by existing regulation of 2009 is rather ambiguous, as the national target for energy efficiency efforts were not mandatory across the sectors. Number two, there was a relatively little awareness among the stakeholders, especially in the SMEs, about the potential benefits of energy saving for the business, mixed with some doubt sometimes about the reliability of the technology and measures that really save energy. ESCO are facing it in the projects. I think all ESCO knows that all over the world, because the mainstream financial institution also failed to recognize the benefits of energy efficiency. And the last one is there is a serious lack of professional skill among ESCO players to engage in effective obvious pressure for reducing the energy consumption and the global pressure for climate-related action. The country needs to have a strong co-regulation to energy demand, on energy demand. Let me show you how important is the improvement that we are waiting for. So the new regulation, it will make overall energy efficiency mandatory. At last, it is mandatory. Yeah. And more realistic target of energy. For you who knows, the current regulation do not cover the transportation sector, which is the largest energy user in our country. So riding. New market prospect from the state-owned assets or facilities will be open to private ESCO. Clear M&F procedures for energy-saving efforts and standard ESPC are being established to help reduce possible disputes. And some form of incentive and disincentive measure are being prepared by the government. There are other things that is encouraging for ESCO in Indonesia beside the regulation regulatory framework, which have been studied and proposed recently, involving national and international funding institutions to help energy efficiency projects funded. Dedicated green funds, for example, and PPP, public-private partnership for state-owned projects are being discussed and now going to be proposed. Some de-risking factors like the carbon tax system or mechanism, energy-saving insurance, and tradable carbon reduction certificate from energy-saving measures are also being studied and prepared by the government involving the relevant private sectors. And again, extended capacity building programs to improve ESCO professional skill and performance is very, very needed. All those measures are urgently needed to make the national energy efficiency efforts impactful, and the ESCO business can flourish and sustain in Indonesia. Now, let me close my presentation by appreciating the organizer to allow Maskei to speak in this forum. I hope that this brief expose will create interest in international institutional community attending this forum that hope to having a fruitful collaboration in helping Indonesian ESCO sustain and grow healthily. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And we had a little bit of trouble with your audio there, but I think we got the message and some very good information there. I think we can see some similarities as well, just with the overall need for capacity building in the ESCO sector. Let's move on. We should hear now from Bangladesh, where there's been actually an enormous success in bringing finance to industry for energy efficiency. And one of the drivers behind that is in IDCOL. So I'm very pleased to hear from Mohammed Zahirul Haq. He's a real expert in this topic from IDCOL. We're really pleased to have you today. Please share with us for some 5 minutes your experience in Bangladesh and your insights to this problem. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Mars. It's really a pleasure for me. So that actually you have invited me for this, for saying something in this session. So let's start with the question that the Meher was asked a few minutes ago, that the why this South Asian region, right? So exactly, let me show you the one slide. I mean, I'm directly going to the slide so that it'd be better for you to see. Hope you can see, right?
Yes, we can.
So why
yes,
why this South Asian region? You can see that though we are not a very big country, but with a very good number of population, and the most interesting factor is that we have actually making a sustainable growth more than 7% for a couple of consecutive last years, and we're the 42nd largest economy, and we're the top 10, one of the top 10 first growing country in the world. So that's the reason actually why it's Bangladesh is being one of the important. Okay. So I'm also would like to thank Mr. Amit that he make a very good the context and the background, so that I may directly go into the main point rather than taking the context repeatedly. So just a few more items that I want to reiterate, that we have already placed our the roadmap towards the energy efficiency and the carbon emission, and we have self-declared that we will be achieve 15% of our primary energy consumption compared to the base year in 2021, and by 30 we'll have to achieve the 20%. And not only this is, and based on this we have to formulate the energy efficiency conservation master plan. So that master plan focuses not only for the energy efficiency and the primary energy consumption, rather than energy auditing program and leveling program and the energy management program review, and many more are there. So we can say that we have just started our journey, but a long way to go. So there is a slide very quickly I would like to show you, that if you can see that the baseline, what is the 2013 and 14 is our base year, that was the primary energy consumption was 3.72, and that is our target to come down between 2.8. So here is the data available for the 2017 and 18, and I have got the latest data because due to the COVID and the situation, last 2 years data was not able to disclose, but I can confirm you that in the year 2020, 21 up to June, the rate actually we have achieved 2.80. So we want to say that actually we are in our path, and we would like to say that at the target that we have set in the 2021, we are in that line. So we have to move forward for the next target. That means 20% reduction of our primary energy consumption within 2030. So just a bit a glimpse that we have already submitted in the month of August 2021 that the first national determined contributions by Bangladesh, where we have mentioned that we will achieve 5% GHG emission reduction as usual cases, business as usual cases by 2030, and it could be raised up to another 10% if we have some conditional. I mean, if we have some foreign donors assistance and the TA part included. So why I mentioned this slide, in the lower part, if you can see that there is a lot of the target that we have set in the transport sector, that the hybrid and the electric vehicles will introduce the electric locomotives and the complete highway with the 4 lanes and the Euro 3 and the 4 engines. But you see that these are the targets set by the nationally, but there is a very, very limited or very small thing that we have already initiated. So what I want to say that if the new donor or the DFIs or the MFIs are intervene here, there is an ample scope for this transport segment. So here is just mention a few of the things that we have initiated few strategic policy documents by the government. So why I mention it here, that if you can see that the energy efficiency conservation master plan and we have already managed more than $582 million for the energy efficiency program booster. We are the one who have initiated 4.5 million of the improved coke stove, and we are the single largest installer of the around 4.2 million of the solar home system. So let's skip, it will be coming the later. So that is the main point of our today's discussion, that back a couple of few dialogue, we have mentioned our position and what is our plan and what we're doing, what is our intention and what we want to do. But today is the much more concentrated to the focusing on the challenge that we're facing and how we want to come around and what is the scope and the aspect that the foreign DFIs or the relevant stakeholders come up in this market. So if you see that though we have firstly mentioned that the availability of the funds. Fund means actually we are meaning that the low cost concessionary financing, which we can on lend to the private sector for procuring of the energy efficient equipment or the green finance or the green projects. So that's why relevant that these are the DFIs already interfere in this market, the JICA, French Development Bank, ADB, KfW, and the Green Climate Fund. So in total, there is a $582 million fund managed by IDCOL only. But what we want to say that this is really a very small amount compared to the total country's demand. So there is ample scope for the intervene of the a good number of the DFIs can intervene. So another thing, the next point, if you can mention that this super branding, that what we want to say that this energy efficiency component in this segment that is actually not that much popular in this segment. I'm very much pleased to hear that the Indonesian Mr. John said that in Indonesia the energy efficiency is mandatory. That I really appreciate that, but unfortunately we couldn't do that level. So that's why we want to say that this energy saving, energy efficiency achievement, and making this thing that must be coming through our behaviors. We must carrying this in our attitude. Otherwise, by doing the law or something, it can't be achieved. So that's why we feel that a good number of awareness, communication, building, and the gear up this efforts we must do this kind of the super branding. And you know that there is a good number of the people and the venture in here. Those are really small and the medium in size, but the organization like IDCOL or similar other financial organization, they are mainly focusing for the large group of people. And one thing that I missed to mention, that though we are doing very well in the couple of years in terms of the economic development, Bangladesh is the one of the vulnerable country for the climate risk. And you'll be amazed to hear that our contribution to the total GHG emission is less than 0.35%. So the thing is that actually, though we are the less emitter, but we are the one of the most vulnerable country, we would like to actively play its part in the global collective action to reduce the further GHG emission. That's why we are playing, and we're proudly announcing that the IDCOL is playing a pivotal role here. And we feel that not only ITCOL is enough, rather than there are many other organizations, financial institutions, stakeholders should be incorporated in here. So here that we want to mention that the small and the most vulnerable stakeholders, they should be covered under this concessionary financing, under energy efficiency, green financing, or the renewable energy. So as the big amount of money is going to the large infrastructure, so we would like to mention, we'd like to request that we should look into these small groups so that they are not under, beyond this coverage. And another important thing is that the risk assessment, as you know, that when the DFI fund any of the countries for their own lending, they are all the time saying that the very hard, rigid compliance issues, gender issues, environmental issues, and this covering all of these, there is a kind of, that the risk perception is very, it's a different kind of the thing that we have to mitigate it by charging the additional collateral or the additional due diligence that we want to make sure that these project proponents must have to fulfill their in at least minimum level of diligence to get this or to access this fund. So to mitigate this, we may propose that this kind of the that the green credit or the credit guarantee scheme could be initiated. Fortunately, our central bank has initiated the credit guarantee scheme, but that is only for the small and the medium enterprises. And we are pleased to inform you that the World Bank has initiated the discussion for the green credit guarantee scheme. That guarantee scheme will be available only for the green projects. Another important that I must say that there is a lack of capacity. I just mentioned one thing, that if we see that we have achieved to get the $250 million fund from the GCF, but we have to have a very good resource, we have employed a good number of resource and the time to get this proposal at the level. There are some diligence, there are some mandatory compliance issues and the formats and the regulatory requirements that the DFIs are imposing. So the level of the capacity, we do not have much. And that the credit line negotiation, that is also another kind of the capacity, but most of the stakeholders, neither the financial organizations are not. So I hope there is a good number of investment is required for the capacity development. And another thing that I mentioned, that the only one few financial products. Though Bangladesh is growing, but our bond market is not that much matured enough. Also, we are providing only the term loans. And in terms of the loans, we are only providing the solution, but there is an ample scope if we can diversify some of the products. The guarantee scheme could be one, or the green bond, Suku, those are actually upcoming. And we're also proposing that this kind of the green bond or the diversified products could be our probable solution. So exactly, that is the main point, that main slide that I want to focus today, because the time is limited, 5 minutes, and I hope I can give a glimpse over the total country scenario. Thank you very much. Back to you, Mark.
It's okay. Thank you very much. That's a really good detailed setting out of the work that you've been doing. I think it's great that you have already raised $582 million through the mechanism through ITCOL, but still you're saying that it's only just starting on the demand that's there. It's very encouraging and inspiring. And also the point that you're looking at going deeper into the smaller organizations to access this next round of financing. And so that raises the question of how do we access those smaller opportunities and how do we aggregate that demand? So let's move now to Poonam Pandey. Poonam is working with Convergence Energy Services Limited, which is a subsidiary of EESL, probably the most famous aggregator of energy efficiency opportunities in the whole world. I will throw to you to give your perspective on this, what's been done in India, maybe what your feeling is about some of these opportunities, and give some of your experiences. And I'm sorry about the time, it's just 5 minutes, but I know you have more to share than that, but if we can be brief, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So I'll just share my screen so that I can align my thoughts. So I hope it's visible.
Yes, go ahead. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Mark, and very warm greetings to all the distinguished delegates and all the participants who have joined from different corners of the world. I'm going to talk about industrial energy transition in India, and particularly what kind of work ESL Group is doing in this context. A point that I wanted to make was that I personally feel that energy efficiency could be the panacea for the different kinds of problems that we are facing today. Constantly we are having to choose between economy or environment or health, because energy efficiency, not only it creates more jobs, it does take care of environmental aspects also, but at the same time it addresses the health issues also, because most of the times it involves adoption of latest technology, which are usually more friendly and more compliant in terms of health, whether it's air conditioning with inbuilt microbe killing systems, or whether it is the latest kind of refrigerants or ROSH compliant materials. So really, energy efficiency, I personally strongly believe, could be the answer to most of the problems that we are facing right now. And in this context, we have made a strong commitment at Paris to reduce our emissions intensity by around 35%, which is quite ambitious by any standard, by 2030. And naturally, when you talk about energy efficiency, then if you take care of industry sector, which is consuming more than half of the total energy in India, then literally half your work is done. So that's the reason ESL focuses in a strong manner on industrial energy efficiency, and particularly the MSME sector, because we feel that it needs a lot of support from super ESCOs and other institutions like us. So I'll be talking about what we have done. So but you will see that we have demonstrated effectiveness of the measures that we are taking, but what is lacking really is large-scale deployment. Whenever we talk about any initiative, pilot stage and all is fine, but unless you are able to aggregate demand across various sectors and replicate it at scale, you won't be able to make a dent in moving forward in the direction that we want to. So as such, ESL hinges on this very strong model of demand aggregation. As you know, Ujala case, that we were able to bring down the price from $8 to $1 through the demand aggregation model in India. So we want to replicate this story in the industrial segment also, and we have demonstrated that, because we identified 10 different clusters with the help of Jeff and UNIDO and SIDBI. We identified 10 different MSME clusters and chose around 35 technologies. And out of that, in 24, we have already demonstrated that how, by aggregating demand across various industries, we are able to bring down the prices, which is important not just to bring down the prices, but also to make the project more bankable and more financially viable, so to say, attractive for the financial investors, because unless the numbers are large enough, they wouldn't be attracted to this sector. So we have already demonstrated that it's just a question of replicating and scaling it up, which we are now working on. In this context, I would also like to talk about our National Motor Replacement Program, wherein we have already replaced 5,000 motors across section of industries, old inefficient motors with the IE3 premium efficiency motors. So what I'm trying to say over here is that we have been able to demonstrate this now with the help of all the other stakeholders that are present here today. We want to scale it up, and we would deliberate today to see how we can do that. So that's all from my side, and I'm looking forward to the deliberations.
Great, thank you very much, Poonam, and thanks for all your work and showing the way through the leadership of Convergence and ESL. Let's move straight on. We're a little bit behind time, and we are covering a lot of ground very quickly here, but we need to give fair time to Alexander Ablaza from Climagy, but also the head of the Asia Pacific ESCO Alliance out of the Philippines, a real leader in the field, as well as all the rest of our panel or our speakers today are. But Alex, please go ahead and give us your perspective on these questions and how you see this working in the Philippines, and also just from your obviously extensive experience in the finance side as well. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Mark. Fine. So yeah, so typically in fora like this, I wear my Asia Pacific ESCO Industry Alliance, and I see some members here. I see Pa Banu from Abcanindo and other members in the audience. But and sometimes I also, in many cases, I also wear the hats of the Philippine Energy Efficiency Alliance. But today I was asked to bring a solution, and it's the Climagy hat that I wear. Climagy is the Asia's one of the Asia's pioneer equity vehicles for energy efficiency upgrades in the CNI sectors, and how we could use this to scale up ESCO implemented energy efficiency upgrades in Asian growth markets, initially in the Philippines. The Philippines is very interesting because you have a brand new law, and we see that 182 million tons of oil equivalent will have to be shaved off in the next 2 decades. But to make that happen, we have to mobilize $243 billion in the next 2 decades. And a lot of that will have to be done outside the balance sheets of end users and outside the balance sheets of ESCOs. So why Climagy? It's basically because we're addressing the market failure for energy efficiency portfolio finance. We have said in my work across Asia, up to 98% of ESCOs in developing Asia do not have suitable access to bank lending. Either they're not credit worthy enough, or they cannot raise the equity portion of projects, or they would typically max out their credit limit within, let's say, after 3 project loans. Second, no energy efficiency aggregator exists in markets. It's rare in Asia that you have a super ESCO that's flowing equity capital to privately owned ESCOs. And that's still very rare, although ESL is slowly embracing that role in India. But in the rest of Asia, we don't have this aggregator of equity capital for ESCOs. And then third, there's no entity removing barriers for upfront energy efficiency project development. Who's putting down money for investment grade audits, for PPP transaction, for designing joint venture agreements with state-owned enterprises. And lastly, while there's a lot of growing velocity of private capital towards rooftop solar and other renewable energy, keep in mind, and I would say this is not only true in the Philippines, but in many Asian markets, the capital requirement for energy efficiency is more than double that of renewable energy. So in the Philippines, if they're raising capital for 20,000 megawatts, and you see the private sector already cashing in, there's very little movement towards the 45,900 megawatts of deferred capacity. And that, again, I say it's $243 billion, huge amount of money. So for ESCOs, they can grow their pipeline and just focus on what they do best, deliver and guarantee energy savings. For commercial building owners, they're able to accelerate now implementation of projects and preserve their capital budgets for what they call core business. So unfortunately, for many CNI host entities, energy efficiency is still not yet a core operation or core business. But in the Philippines, I'd like to say, although they're trying to do this in Indonesia, anyone consuming 500,000 kilowatt hours a year already has obligations under the new law. So Climagy is like a privately owned super ESCO. We arrange equity and debt providers and flow their capital through a portfolio of 40, 50, 60 ESCO contracts with the CNI. And we can engage them either on a late brownfield or a pure greenfield basis. So together, if we are mobilizing the first $108 million investment tranche in the Philippines, we imagine the following impacts: up to 3 terawatt hours avoided through 2040, up to 300 gigawatt hours of annual avoided generation by 2031, or the equivalent of a 55 megawatt coal-fired power plant. We have also a GHG reduction, as well as job generation, I think, which is very critical for a post-COVID-19 economic recovery, that we can generate anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 jobs through the first investment tranche. So I stop there and present this as a solution, flowing capital, where access to finance in the ESCO world is very, very limited. So back to you, Mark.
Alex, thank you so much for your presentation and your pioneering work in this field. I think it's really, blazing the way for many others, and you're to be congratulated on keeping at it and showing the way. I think any of our panelists today could have probably spent the last 30 minutes speaking on their own about their experience on these topics easily. It's a shame that we've only had a short snippet from each of them, but I found it very interesting, and I hope it sets a good stage for what's to follow. So I'm going to hand it back, in the interest of time, hand it straight back to Mihar for the next session. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mark, for that engaging segment. And thank you to all our regional experts as well as leaders for presenting and pitching these innovative solutions and prospective approaches. As Mark mentioned, I think the experience and valuable, respectable inputs that you bring, we could go on and on today. Each of these solutions, I believe, will definitely play a vital cog in setting the roadmap for an energy secure future. Quickly moving on to our next segment, I now pass the stage to Vivek Adya, Country Director India at the Institute for Sustainable Communities, to invite in the insights, suggestions, and questions towards these great solutions pitched today from institutions that focus on building climate sustainability within the region through effective green partnerships and critical investments. Over to you, Vivek.
Thank you, Mehar. Wow, I can't. I can't put together words. That was a super exciting session just before, and perfectly sets the stage for what we have in store now. We've been hearing across, all across, we've been seeing there is such a tremendous opportunity in South Asia and Southeast Asia. But today, in the panel just before, we were able to experience this up close. We all can agree that now is the time to make those bold decisions and accelerate clean tech energy efficiency adoption. And to that effect, I'm extremely pleased to facilitate this session and engage with conversations with the people who call the shots, who hold the money purse. They are investment stalwarts whose only agenda is to address on-ground barriers and unlock investment opportunities for low carbon growth. So I'm very pleased to invite our panelists, our investment stalwarts, our jury, Shalabh Tandon, Regional Head of Operations, South Asia, IFC, Anjana Sheshadri, the Vice President at NEEV Fund, Sarbinder Singh, Head of Investments at P4G, and Marcus Bissell, Project Director at GIZ. We've seen in our previous sessions, and we've had a comparison between the landscape across each of these different countries that we spoke about, and what really comes across strong is that each of these regions are at different stages of maturity, are having differing on-ground barriers and challenges, and different opportunities, right from Vietnam with industrial energy consumption up there as 50% of their primary total, or looking at the questions about how we can replicate the presidential lighting and commercial success to industrial efficiency, industrial energy efficiency in India, or to look at how we've seen the integration of key financial instruments like carbon tax and carbon markets in Indonesia, or looking at Bangladesh in terms of an overarching technology rollout point of view. There are these differing nuances, and what I'll do is I'll call upon each of our respected leaders from the investment, financing, and overarching space to really come up with their first round of interventions and share what their priorities are, what they look up in this region, and then go back with a second round to reflect on what they have heard in our first session and really outline some of the key criteria and factors that would nudge and push the needle and really open up and drive financing cash flows into clean tech and energy efficiency adoption, especially in the manufacturing space in the region. So I'd like to first call upon Shalabh Tandon. Shalabh, you've been doing a lot of work in this space, and especially focusing on MSMEs and looking at innovative financing models and really looking at how the risk can be mitigated. There are your focus countries, including India and Bangladesh. We'd really like to hear from you in terms of where IFC is, what are you looking at in the region, and how you're rolling out some of your initiatives. So can we start with that, Shalabh?
Yeah, thanks, Vivek, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I think it was a great start. The topic is very important and very complex. It's one of the areas where IFC has struggled to scale up. We've done a lot of interesting projects and financing, but solving the entire MSME problem has been very difficult. Just as a start, as an introduction for everybody else here, IFC is the private sector investment arm of the World Bank. And basically, we invest only in private sector companies. We are also the largest source of multilateral finance for private sector, having invested over $30 billion in climate change and mobilized over $25 billion for climate change. IFC has also done more than $10 billion of green bonds on its own balance sheet. Very recently, the World Bank Group president announced the Climate Change Action Plan for the entire World Bank Group, including IFC. And the two main targets that have been given to us, and from there South Asia also emerges, is that every dollar that we finance, 35% has to be climate related. And starting July 1, 2023, 85% of our financing has to be Paris aligned. And from 2025, 100% of our financing has to be Paris aligned. So to achieve that, and within South Asia also, there are some very large sectors, game-changing sectors that we are focusing on. To name a few, obviously the renewable energy where we have financed a lot, the power sector, then transportation, green transportation, urban cities, climate smart agriculture, and then manufacturing. So within manufacturing, there are many pieces. There is obviously industrial efficiency. You may work with large companies like the Tata Steel or steel conglomerates or cement conglomerates and give solutions like carbon capture utilization, green hydrogen could be the next thing. You may have recently heard of sustainability linked bonds and so on. So that's the large segment. And then there is the MSMEs, which is a supply chain or value chain of one or more industries. And within MSMEs, I think the problem is much broader than what we have discussed so far today. It's much more than just energy efficiency. And I completely agree with Alex from Philippines that we haven't found, at least IFC, despite all our efforts, have still struggled to finance a private sector-led super ESCO financing the MSMEs for this. And maybe in subsequent round, I can react to the proposals today. So in the interest of time, let me stop here with this context setting, and I can come back again to react to some of the proposals. Thanks, Vivek.
Thank you, Shalabh, and I, really that torchlight about aligning it with Paris and aligning it where it matters the most is such an important facet that IFC brings across, World Bank brings across. Moving on, I'd like to invite Anjana to just introduce the NEEV Fund. And NEEV Fund was set up by Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Cameroon as a collaborative initiative to really drive investments where it's not flowing currently, and looking at a few Indian states and so on. Anjana, especially from the Indian context and the unique bilateral, the combination that is brought across through NEEV Fund, Would you be able to share some light in terms of what has already happened and what's in the pipeline?
Sure. Thank you so much, Vivek. So just a quick introduction to NEEF Fund. Thank you so much for just giving the heads up that we are a bilateral cooperation that was set up in 2014. So NEEF Fund was, of course, set up in 2014, launched officially in 2015 with cooperation from the two prime ministers, Prime Minister Modi and Cameron from the UK. The thought behind setting up a small infrastructure fund was that typically smaller infrastructure and green infrastructure in India were not finding the kind of equity support or the equity partners. There were not enough risk takers in that sector. And that's exactly where NEEF Fund came in. And we actually invested into a set of 10 companies where in most of the companies, we are pretty much the first investor. So in the sense, we take the largest share of the risk. We invest into growth sectors. Our thesis was to invest into solving India's two biggest issues, which is poverty and playing at the crossroads of climate change as well. So we have a portfolio of investment that spans across renewable energy, clean tech, alternative fuels. That's something that we have taken very seriously, and we've actually supported a few companies that are first time they've actually started up a sector or a market, which is the biomass supply chain or a waste to energy platform. With the success of NEEF Fund 1, when we are completely invested now, we've actually established NEEF Fund 2, which is 4 times the corpus size of NEEF Fund 1, and looks at sectors which are primarily into climate change and environment. So most of our investment is going to be in that sector. Very happy to announce that we are here as well, backed by multilaterals, just like Shalab mentioned. So we have the EIB on our cap table. We also have Foreign Commonwealth Development Office, a few Indian institutional investors, and then we are also in advanced discussion with a few investors from the Far East to come together and set up this fund. So the corpus size of this fund is targeted to be around 280 million. And energy efficiency and clean tech as well as alternate fuel has been really, really close to our investment thesis. We've very closely looked at the energy efficiency market as well, not just at the ESCO model, but also ESCO model in industrials as well as the municipal space, such as like the municipal corporations are also huge energy guzzlers. And we've looked at a few projects there as well, where there are players who are into energy efficient lighting, and there is an ESCO model that's available there as well. So looking at a plethora of technologies and entrepreneurs there. Thank you so much for putting together such a stellar panel today. It was heartening for me to actually see the kind of challenges and the great work that has been done in countries of Indonesia, Bangladesh, Philippines, and India, especially. The Super ESCO model has really played out very well in India, at least, and even in Philippines. So really heartening and wonderful to see that. I just like to close my insights just with one more. Thought that at NEEF Fund we are just not an investor, but we also look at the ecosystem building activities. So whenever we invest into a company, just like we are one of the first investors to a company, we also look at what kind of support they require in terms of capacity building, building markets, driving policy related changes and bringing in the policy. What are the other kind of technological support and the sectoral support that they need. So we are not just a passive equity investor, but we are very active in terms of trying and taking the company ahead so that they become the market leaders in the true sense, and also policy drivers. Thank you.
Thank you, Anjana, and also very happy to hear about the launch of the next fund as well. And quite often it's the first investment is the most difficult one. How do you get that trust, and how do you really get into this first up so that there is an aggregation happening later on? So from multilateral, bilateral to a broader public-private investment piece. There is a very interesting setup, which is partnership for green growth and global goals. And I'd like to invite Sarbinder to share, some background about what P4G has done, especially in South Asia and Southeast Asia. What's your business model? What's your priority sector? And generally how this kind of a arrangement is helping unlock financing into clean tech adoption and energy efficiency. Sarbinder.
Thanks, Amit. First of all, thanks actually for inviting me. I'm quite impressed. I'm quite impressed the level of work which is being done in South Asia, Southeast Asia. I'm based out of Toronto, so there's a distance there, but I did live in India for many years. Where I want to start is what P4G is about. We were launched in 2018 with support from Danish, Dutch, and Korean government. What we do is we provide funding to startup and scale up partnerships. And what we call as partnership, it's a multi-stakeholder partnership where there's an NGO partner, there's a private sector partner. They work together to achieve a bigger goal. They work in areas where there's no precedence. So that's what we fund. The sectors or the SDG goals we're trying to achieve are in 5 areas: energy access, water and sanitation, sustainable cities, circular economy, food and agriculture. And energy access, we have taken a view that we look at from the energy transition perspective and cover a wider area, right from the emerging use of energy, for example, transportation sector, how it is shifting from oil and gas to electricity, and on the other side, getting into generation. And efficiency is one of the key there. So definitely, it's no more an option; it is a must-have. With the kind of growth we are seeing in energy sector, and if we don't focus on energy efficiency, we're creating another issue of climate change. So that's overall. We work in 12 countries, 3 of our funding countries, and 9 countries in 3 in Asia, Bangladesh, Vietnam, and Indonesia, 3 in Africa, Ethiopia, Kenya, and South Africa, and 3 in Latin region, Mexico, Colombia, and Chile. So far, since 2018, we have funded over 50 multi-stakeholder partnerships. And some of those partnerships over the last 3 years have now reached a spot where they themselves have become financially sustainable. And it's not just funding we provide, but also we manage our own ecosystem. This ecosystem involves the national platforms, which we have set up in each of our countries where we work, and national platforms have got representation from government, representation from private sector, and together that they provide that ecosystem required for the startup ideas or scale-up ideas within country to mature into something where the impact is seen on the ground, and these things become financially sustainable. So that's all about P4G. And it's very exciting. And for me, personally saying it's more than one thing. ESCO, when I hear about ESCO, I feel very excited. This is something, which I developed the first ESCO in India more than 21 years ago. It was even more before when the Energy Conservation Act came into play in 2001. And now, when I hear about funds being set up and all kind of support being provided, I said, wow, I wish these things existed at the time when I was struggling with these things. And I heard each of the speaker. It was very exciting. I heard John talking about the policy framework. As I said, I set up the ESCO before even the policy came in place. In fact, we provided input to the policy at that time. But one of the key things what we did, which actually fed very well into policy, was we did the first building sector project in India with New Delhi Municipal Corporation, their corporate office. That was the first fully financed ESCO project in India. And I left India in 2003. So I don't know, how much replication was there, but that's one model. I strongly believe that if government adopts, then they will be doing things, or creating or being catalytic or become catalytic in doing more work. That means, government buildings, if they put on, some kind of procurement program where ESCOs are allowed to do the work, government doesn't have to invest. They just have to pay out of what energy they save in those buildings. And that's That's the kind of trigger required. Now talking about, like I was quite excited to see, that Emerging Incorporation, like setting up those funds. I was struggling for getting more funds, especially ASCO, you're in middle, you're not like fully asset owner where you can get asset-based financing. And you're not in the working capital stream that you can get like a working capital financing. So you're in the middle. So that kind of struggle was there, but some dedicated funds which understand the dynamics and are willing to invest is something definitely, I see, triggering and providing that catalytic support. Technology was another area, but not really a huge challenge because, energy efficiency is like peeling an onion, and equipment suppliers are the best at that. If they want to keep in that business and what they are best at, they will keep on improving energy efficiency. And that's where ESCO becomes kind of vehicle to deploy. And I remember working with Denfos like 21 years ago, and today also, there are like people from Denfos who are on our board, and they continue to provide that, new technologies. So, that's kind of my journey, and it's quite exciting, and we are very happy to work with IC, with our partners, to see that more of these innovative approaches are brought into play through multi-stakeholder partnership. I think that's what is a model of success. And we want to see that these things mature into investment propositions so that they become financially sustainable and the impact is permanent. And that's the motto of P4G. I think, that's where I'd like to stop, but
thank you.
I'll talk more about it.
Right. Thank you, Sarvinder, and completely align and echo your thoughts, how the ESCO model has evolved and how energy efficiency financing has evolved over the last 2 decades. 21 years ago was a very different time. And what we have now is a unique setup where we can really advance and, make things happen. And also on that ecosystem development point of view, which you and both Anjana pointed out, I'd now like to invite Marcus, who's been driving some of this, and also you having this dual perspectives about, Germany, bilateral funding, GIZ, ecosystem development, capacity building. Marcus, would really like to throw this open to you and hear your perspectives and your journey in this space first up, and then we come back with a follow-up on your response to what you've heard in the earlier panel as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vivek. So, thank you for giving me the opportunity here to present some experience from Vietnam, from GIZ Vietnam. And actually, in all the countries you mentioned, GIZ is active. So, and GIZ internally, we have a regular exchange, and we exchange each other, how we can approach and have success in the countries. But I was not aware about what the other stakeholders are doing. So it's really quite interesting. So who is GIZ? Actually, we are a non-profit organization, and I used to work in Germany for different utilities, and there I need to earn money, and now I need to spend money, of course, in a proper way and in a meaningful way, to create prospects to people around the world. The difference here is we only provide technical assistance. We don't provide any funds. And we are the implementing agency of the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development in Germany. And we are active in Vietnam since 2009 already. And since 2013, we are active in the energy sector. So we have a different project at the moment. And there's one project, we call it 4E project, which is focusing on energy efficiency in the industry. There we are focusing on the industry, yes, but also on the key energy user. So these are consumer which consumes more than 1,000 TOE, and they consume 40% of the energy consumption in Vietnam. So Mark mentioned already the 50% of the whole industry and 40% for 3,000 companies. How do we work? We work on capacity building, we work on legal and regulatory framework, and technology cooperation. So what are our, let's say, main success activities? So we supported Ministry of Industry and Trade in the development of VNEP. Mark mentioned it already, the quite ambitious National Energy Efficiency Action Program. And we also currently supporting MYT in the implementation of the Energy Efficiency Law, which was established in 2011 already. And yeah, we are prepared a website for energy manager and energy auditor, where we have already 500 energy manager and energy auditor on board. And there we want to link actually technology provider with the private sector. So it was established or published in March already, and it's quite successful. And we could match already some technology provider with companies. In terms of investment, so we supported 8 companies with an innovative approach of advising. We called it Energy Efficiency Network. And at the end, we found out energy saving potential for an investment of $460,000 US dollar, $460,000 US, and the energy savings was $410,000. And this is always an amazing number. So we calculated the investment cost in electricity savings. And we found out that the investment cost for saved electricity is 4 cents per kilowatt hour. And you know, the electricity price in Vietnam is of course quite low, but 4 cents per kilowatt hour, this is really compatible. At the moment, there are no real ESCO companies in Vietnam. Only on boiler there are some companies active, but on other technologies they are not active. So Mark mentioned it already. There are a lot of challenges in Vietnam, but for me the door opener are energy auditor, so they can provide services, and we need to support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus, and very interesting perspectives there. I'd also like to remind our audience, if you have any questions for our panelists or our investment stalwarts, please keep them coming in our Q&A box. Shalabh, I'll come back to you again, and based on what you heard in the earlier panel and different country perspectives, and also within the criteria that IFC has in terms of opportunity size, the potential impact, whether it's in terms of energy savings, greenhouse gas reductions, cost savings, or your technology or sector preferences, and also the model that Amit presented, and we also heard about different models from different countries. What's your confidence level in all of that? Or any other comments you might have, Shalabh, on the first session? I'd like to hear from your side.
No, again, thanks, Vivek. I think some very interesting solutions were offered in the structure that Amit presented and what Poonam also presented. Since I look at South Asia, I think India is one of the largest markets. Let me react in the context of India. So I think if we have to find a solution for the energy efficiency problem, we have to look at the entire holistic solution. IFC is fully committed to financing any large-scale energy efficiency intervention. We have had some success with municipalities, state-owned entities, etc., as Anjana was pointing out. But a large part of our success has been in green and affordable housing, because there we are working with very large conglomerates and construction players and housing players, etc., who are able to quickly get scale and apply a lot of these standards in their green building rollout. But the challenge on the MSME side, let me break it up into 4 things. And if we can find a solution to all 4, IFC would be very happy to finance and partner and leverage all its relationships. We have heard some solutions, but it requires another discussion, and happy to discuss offline with some of them later. First, on demand aggregation, Poonam pointed out, totally agree. That's the first starting step of the problem. Second is on the technical side. Once you have aggregated the demand, then these MSMEs need a lot of technical assistance, hand-holding, audits, knowledge awareness, capacity building, a lot of that. Third is access to finance for these MSMEs, which Alex pointed out. And finally, fourth is the business model that Amit discussed. What is the structure of financing you're looking at? How do we make it credit worthy? How do we use risk-sharing instruments? Can we leverage donor funds and concessional finance for any viability gaps that you may have in the business model? And today, IFC is working on all the 4 pieces in different countries. We are at different stages of progress. And once we have found a solution to all the 4 pieces, we would be happy to create in partnership with any of the players globally or here, a platform which will look like a super ESCO and implement all these solutions. I think in the paucity of time, I hope I've done justice in summarizing our view to this complex problem. Thanks.
Thank you, Shalab, and just like Mark, it's our bad that we are not able to have enough time for all the interventions that's coming in, but all of these are very, very important. So thank you. Anjana, would you like to build up on what Shalab mentioned in terms of his responses and the areas that he identified, or any other short burning response that you might see from the first session, if we can have a quick input before moving on?
Sure. I think from what we heard, I pretty much echo with what Shalab said, and in fact, Marcus and Alex and Poonam also had mentioned that in their delivery. Few of the challenges that we see currently definitely are the, who's the early stage risk taker here, and who funds that risk. There's also risk sharing that was discussed, that we need to address that. With that, the next set of challenge or the issue that we see is the structuring or the design of the JV or the SPV that would come into place. And I think there are a lot of innovative models that are coming up now, especially with the coming up of the Super ESCO. ESL is also one of these examples. And especially with finance, there has recently been a lot of uptake in the blending of financing, which comes from private as well as the public sector ecosystem debt, coupled with the multilateral line that you could get. There's also additionality and concessionality that is built into that. That could become an attractive proposition for a lot of ESCOs.
Thanks, Anjana. Sarbinder, Marcus, your short responses as well on what has been said so far, and where do you see this moving to really see on-ground implementation and impact? Sarbinder, first you, and then Marcus.
No, absolutely. I mean, as I said, I personally and, organizationally, we strongly believe in innovative market-based solution coming, and that's what, that's where we take position. And what we are trying to do on our side is that how we can, work with other institutions to blend at the partnership level when partnership is mature enough, where the investment funds can come along with the funding we provide. And that way the transition will be faster. And that's where the gap is. I mean, that's where, again, where I was challenged is that we did everything well, but investors didn't come along with us, 21 years ago. But today, I mean, when I see so many investors talking about it, I just heard IFC, heard Anjana talking about it. And that's where what we are seeing is that how do we integrate with these investors so that once these partnerships mature in our ecosystem, either they come as like co-funding or as like where we exit, they start funding, because we are still very much upstream. So that is one thing, that's kind of core. We are still working with, have some success, and hopefully, we'll have maybe some solid solution very soon where it becomes, part of an integral solution. But energy efficiency is in a difficult space. To make it a business proposition, I'm happy to see that, like Super ESCO model has been successful, and the dedicated funds who understand the dynamics coming into play will actually make it happen at scale. And it's not one or two organizations, but it's as good as doing any other business. So that's what we are striving for.
Thanks, Marcus.
Yeah, so as I mentioned already, it's quite interesting what happened in the different countries. And when I share my experience with ESCOs in Vietnam, so there are no ESCOs, and the Vietnamese government is working on this since 20 years already, or 15 years, but there's no movement. And it's super interesting how it could work, and I fully support and invite all the companies to come to Vietnam and develop their ideas there. you get the full support of GIZ. And yeah, energy efficiency is always competing with renewable energy. Renewable energy is quite fancy and a bit sexier, more sexy than energy efficiency. Energy efficiency is not visible. It's quite hard to convince companies to invest. And yeah, for Vietnam is always a good example. Energy efficiency in India, we appreciate very much the efforts in India. Yeah, and we copy and paste some of the activities. For example, the motor replacement program we are currently implementing in Vietnam. And I think with those approaches, we really can achieve something, and we need to share experience with different projects to learn from each other. So this is always my approach to share experience within a network.
Thank you so much, Marcus. And we'll try and blend in the responses from our in-country partners and the Q&A as well in the paucity of time, and we'll just stretch this by about 5-7 minutes, and we'll try and wrap up fast. But Marcus, to your exact point, the sharing of learnings and sharing of experiences and replicating is exactly what we had as one of our top questions from the audience as well, in terms of how do we really enhance and provide that sort of a setup where there is regional learning, there is scope to expand the ESCO-based innovative models which are successful in countries to a more regional level and a multi-geography level. I'll see if you have any of our investment stalwarts have any critical response to just taking it up to a regional level and try and see what might work in terms of just bringing this together, what format might be best, but also invite our in-country partners if they have any one-line final remarks on what Shalabh, Anjana, Sarbinder, and Marcus mentioned on their from their lens, from the investment lens point of view. If you have any key responses, we'll take that and we'll close our session. Yes, Alex.
Yeah, thank you. It's very interesting hearing Shalabh and Sarbinder and Anjana and Marcus. My heart, I left part of my heart in IFC. I used to head the global climate finance team leading Asia operations of IFC. And I used to be the clean energy program and energy efficiency anchor of Asian Development Bank. So, returning to the private sector, I can tell you this, and I'm also borrowing some words from Marcus. RE is very sexy. So it's not just end user adoption, it's capital raising as well. If my fund were for rooftop solar, I could have raised $100 million 4 years ago. But it's for an asset class called energy efficiency, and it's very hard to get that first investor, as you very well point out. The large corporates would rather put money in a portfolio of solar, for example, but not for energy efficiency. So it's let's brainstorm here. Is there a way that P4G can work with IFC? IFC need and ADB would need me to get a very strong anchor investor first before I take on the multilaterals, right? So it's capital raising is a challenge for energy efficiency, and there might be a way to put some upstream money, as I would borrow Sarbinder's words. If there was some more upstream money that could take on more risk, then it's something that the multilaterals could build on. Or maybe the multilaterals can use some climate funding to de-risk there and still protect their AAA credit rating. So just a few reactions to the capital raising challenges for an asset class called energy efficiency.
And I want to
add something.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes. Quickly.
Yes. Okay. I agree to my election and before with Marcus. energy efficiency is less sexy because you can't see anything. In renewable energy, you can see the power plant and etc. But my idea is that renewable energy and energy efficiency must be attacked, must be in tandem. So the project renewable energy and energy efficiency is like a coin with two sides, right? So I don't see any problem, in fact, to step up the energy efficiency if you are going to combine it with renewable energy project. For example, in a solar system. So personally, I see renewable energy is a way of energy conservation, right? So that's why in my proposal is to see a program or project of energy efficiency being combined with renewable energy. Maybe the institution can think about it, and the second thing I would comment about aggregating demand aggregation. Well, that's for industry, for the common industry is rather difficult because it's so diverse. Yeah, I can see some model of demand aggregation, like for example, ESCO in the street solar, or on street light, solar street light, for example. You can aggregate the demand, but the mechanism how you have to share with the smaller ESCO, if you are going to be dominant in that, that's a problem in itself. I want to hear how the mechanism of that demand aggregating is working on the field. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak John. And we have two last comments, Sarbinder and Marcus, before we close this session. Sarbi.
Okay, just a quick one. I'm very happy to hear when Alexander used the term energy efficiency as an asset class. This is something, which creates the characteristics around it that can go through the credit risk evaluation that can actually, can be rated and say, yeah, you can invest it. And, I don't think we are yet there in my view, but I'm seeing, a lot of right things happening. Even in Toronto, we got an efficiency capital fund set up here by somebody, which means it is shaping up. Now, one of the things, which comes to my mind, can take it further, is getting the revenue model right. And this is something, where energy efficiency, the revenue stream, because that's what I found as challenging as an ESCO when I set up the ESCO 21 years ago, that I couldn't segregate the revenue stream from the host, and if that can happen with help from utility, that means, that ESCO billing or ESCO cash flow is part of the utility billing process, then that will go a long way in, defining this as an asset class. So that's a critical thing. I mean, asset is there, the revenue stream is not well defined. So that is one thing. If happens, it will go a long way. So that's just one thing I wanted to mention.
Well, that's the mantra for success in this space. So thanks, Sarbinder, for succinctly laying this out. Marcus, quickly from your side.
Very quickly, just one additional remark to what John mentioned, to combine renewable energy and energy efficiency. Actually, we tried it because we have mandatory energy audits in Vietnam, and we tried to enable the energy auditor to make pre-feasibility studies for renewable energy, because we had a quite attractive feed-in tariff 2 years ago. But then we faced challenges with the Vietnamese government. There were two departments, renewable energy department, energy efficiency. And then, it did not work, but maybe as an idea for the other countries.
Thank you. And thank you, Poonam and Mohammed, as well, for your comments on the chat window. We were always sure that we might struggle on time, but we really wanted to make a start. We wanted to bring everybody together, bring in the in-country partners, bring in the financing lens and investment lens from this. And we will not stop here. We are just starting this up, and we'll try and stitch all these conversations in a much more deeper format, and we'll get back to each one of you. My apologies if we've missed out on any other pressing points or very interesting conversations, but this is just a start. We'd like to continue on this platform, bring everybody together, and also to our audience, because we've not been able to answer and address all your queries, our experts will reach out to you and connect you with the relevant folks as well. I'll stop here in the interest of time, hand it over to Meher, but it's been really fascinating. Thank you so much, everyone, for your valuable insights.
Thank you so much, Vivek, and thank you to all these speakers for really driving this conversation home today. And I think for creating the much needed bridge between these solutions for the region and investments, as well as significant partnerships that could help enable such unique models at scale. Quickly, I now request all of you to switch on your cameras for a quick photo op to commemorate this event. Right. Thank you so much. To conclude, I would like to extend a heartfelt gratitude to all the speakers, experts, leaders that joined us today, who have paid a promising vision for the future while building blocks towards a roadmap to achieve the same. I would also like to thank P4G for their supporting partnership and Climate Group for this magnificent platform. A big thank you to our engaging and interactive audience as well. We received a plethora of questions, and we'll make sure that we answer them offline and try to save on time right now. This event today, I believe, marks a beginning. And as Vivek mentioned, it marks a start, and a transformative one at that. It has garnered the understanding that there is a wide possibility and there are real-time solutions that elevate our strive towards achieving net zero. Again, as mentioned during our segments, this arena is complex. There are layers to peel, and sustainable, scalable solutions in place of stopgap approaches are the goals. At ISC, as Vivek mentioned, we shall not stop here. We shall continue to strive towards combating the different challenges that we have examined today through supporting the innovative solutions and strengthening ecosystems as well as partnerships. For a better and sustainable tomorrow, let's make it happen and let's see what is possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
We should
everyone.
do this more often.
Again.
Yeah.
Bye then.
Thank you. See you later. See you again. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Amit.